Hello, all my Great Clips family. My name's Chad Bolts. I'm a national educator with John Paul Mitchell Systems, and I'm here to take you through my favorite Pixie haircut. This haircut I did demonstrate on a live stream a few days ago before I recorded this, but I wanted to get this out to you in a format that I was able to control the camera angles and do a little editing and make it nice and efficient for you. So here we go. We're going to start by taking basically hemispheres, taking half of the head from the top of the head to just behind the ear, and then a center back section. Center back section of about an inch, depending on the density and texture of the hair. So I'm just clipping that away. What I love about this haircut is the juxtaposition of techniques. So within the same cut, we have two different scissor techniques and razor work as well. We're going to start in the crown area, and we're going to work with a sawtooth, sort of a deep point cutting technique, where the angle of attack is not vertical, it's very diagonal, almost horizontal. And depending on the camera angle here, you'll be able to see it looks very horizontal from this angle, but from the other angle with the camera on my shoulder, you can see that it is actually pretty like diagonal on the angle of attack. And then we switch the technique to once we get about high occipital, we switch to a blunt technique. So you get a lot of movement in the crown area, but around the occipital and into the nape, that hair really hugs the head shape and is nice and smooth. So you have organization and a little bit of chaos within the same hemisphere of the head. So we did prep the hair with some super skinny serum. I like the slip that it gives me in the frizz fighting. It also, since we're in the Great Clips world, we're concerned about timing and everything. The fact that the super skinny complex in super skinny serum constricts the cuticle and pushes excess moisture out, it's going to dry the hair faster. And then as we work around the section closest to me, we're going to bisect the initial section. So take about half of that first section and then about a half an inch of the section next to me, closest to me, and working almost like a pie shape from the center out. So if we call the center section section 1, and then the sections radiating out section 2, section 3, section 4. With the goal being no over direction. We are trying to comb the hair straight out from where it lives. So no over direction. 1 onto 2, 2 onto 3, 3 onto 4. And essentially just doing a 90-degree haircut in this section. Everything cut from where it lives. So I don't know if you noticed the bird's eye view of that camera angle. I didn't realize the GoPro was going to get so close to my facial hair. But yeah, this was a lot of fun to do, both on the live stream and in the lab, so to speak, and just work right to that mastoid division line. Again, sawtooth, as you can see, almost horizontal cutting into more of a blunt technique. I always get asked when I work with Great Clips stylists, what can we do as stylists to improve our take home or our retail? In the Paul Mitchell world, we call it take home. In Great Clips, it's retail. And I think it's less about just thinking about selling a product and more about working it into your cutting system. So if this were a salon appointment, as my customer is looking at herself in the mirror, that super skinny serum that I used on her is facing her. So she's looking at that throughout the entire service. And likewise, every other product that I use on her is going to be facing her right in the face. The great thing about Paul Mitchell products, they're very user attractive. They smell amazing. So they provide conversation pieces, once you bring them out. So that's another tip is, actually use product on the hair. So many times we don't make it a focus. We're worried about that speed. We're worried about the next customer. We're worried about whatever happened at home that morning. And we don't make it part of a daily system. So love the utilization of product on every single customer. It is not a choice. It's just something that we do as part of our daily routine, which we don't have anymore since we are all dealing with the ramifications of the virus. So as we're having this time off and we have this time to sort of reflect on our lives and our careers, just really encourage you to think about what you can do in your daily system once you get back behind the chair that will lead to, greater success in that take-home area. It's definitely something that you have to continue working on daily. I'm saying this to you, but I'm saying it to myself. Real quick, in that nape area, we are not tucking the fingers super close to the head shape. We don't want to go for an androgynous look. We want to keep a little bit of length there so that we can detail it later with the razor. So we're working on that section away from us. Once again, section 1 onto section 2, section 2 onto section 3, section 3 onto section 4. Everything cut from where it lives. So in that transition area, we work from the sawtoothing into more of a blunt cut. I will say this haircut is great for women with all different types of hair, all different textures, curly, straight. Much easier to do on someone who already has an existing pixie or already has existing short hair. The challenge I found both in the live stream and in this video was working with mannequins that had not been previously cut. It's tough to strike in that shape when that hair flops over your fingers like that. So right now we're cross-checking, both with the fingers, sort of a just by feel cross-check, and then actually working the comb through the section. Now's the fun part. We get to work into the sides. In the transition, you're going to notice two different finger angles. We are sectioning diagonal forward, but our first cut is going to be diagonal back, and you'll notice my fingers. We're going to be working with the razor. So I just showed the camera, getting rid of the scissors, bringing out the razor. I'm using a feather nape razor. That is in that cutthroat style. So the way I hold it, two fingers in front, third finger, my ring finger behind, and then my pinky is just sort of free floating. The razor, and as you see there, my finger angle is actually working diagonal back to get that transition into the back hair. And now we're going to work diagonal forward into our sideburn area. One thing that's really important to talk about with your customer is if they want the hair over their ears or if they want the hair over their ears. So, it's the same question, but two very different answers. So make sure you're checking, do they want the ear to be exposed and that hair up and over the ear, or do they want that hair hanging over their ear and covering the ear? Both legitimate options for this haircut, but both very different results, and something that your customer will really pick up on and care about, and be upset about if you misinterpret that. So just ask a couple of extra questions in the consultation step and make sure that you know what you're doing. Right now what we're doing is just piecing out around the hairline, making it nice and have a lot of movement, taking some bulk out. The razor, let's talk about that for a second. Razors can be a precision tool. It can also be a hacking tool. A lot of people freak out when they see a razor coming into a stylist's hands because they might have had their hair hacked up before. What we're going to do with the razor today, though, is use it as more of a precision instrument. You'll notice that I keep the elbow movement to a minimum. I'm treating it like a chisel or like a fine calligraphy pen. The way I'm holding that, So very, very delicate work, and no danger at any time of cutting the customer or cutting myself. Although I did cut myself during the live stream, which was awesome. And yeah. Also really important to use a sharp razor. You can usually make it, maybe one haircut on a mannequin head per razor blade. You can get through a couple cuts on a human, depending on their hair texture. If you're using like a shark blade it's not feathered, that's a straight razor blade, you'll probably have to go through maybe 2 razor blades for one haircut, because that dulls really fast. Another little trick with the razor, we tend to use the front portion of the razor for most of the cutting, so that dulls fat first. So to get more longevity out of it, you can actually take the razor blade out, flip it, and then work off the back, so the back becomes the front, and you can maintain sharpness. Right now what we're doing is some razor over comb, just to take out some of that extra weight. So you're going to notice there's about 5 or 6 different razor techniques we're going to work with today. First one you'll see coming up here in just a second, being the more calligraphy style, getting some nice peaks and valleys. So as you'll see, that diagonal back sectioning first to blend into the sides. Working at, like I said, like a calligraphy pen, and the deeper the strokes, the more bulk you're taking out, the more texture. But it is all working off of a baseline. I always like to think about this as, I don't know if you can imagine in your head like a EKG or like a seismograph, or like an oscilloscope, where you have a baseline and then you have peaks and valleys going up and below that baseline. That's what we're doing with the razor. Where my fingers are essentially the baseline, but we're getting a lot of peaks and valleys within that line. So automatic texture right away. This is more of a scooping technique. So grabbing the hair in between my fingers and then peeling it off, almost like you're peeling an apple or whittling wood. You'll see that technique come up again a little later. So here you go. You can see some really deep peaks and valleys as we get into that thicker hair in the parietal area. Really, really deep point. There we go. So I'm actually using my elbow a little bit more there to get that depth in the razor stroke. And again, just as we did on the other side, piecing out the hairline. The sectioning for this, section at the parietal ridge for the sides. So you have that hair on top that's going to be treated a little bit differently. So again, just piecing out that hairline.